Here out on my porch this evening. I had put a post on the community wall asking your feedback on today's testimony. It was about Tammy Daybell. And when we were getting through it today, something just kept going over and over in my mind, and that was justice through understanding. And then I got to thinking about what we have been talking about for almost, 4 years, right? About all these different subjects and all of our thoughts and theories and hypotheses about every single person that is involved in this trial, this case. We've been through the Hussey's trial. We've seen Chad's preliminary hearing. And over again, y'all, after the Hussey got convicted, I said to y'all, we're going to learn some new things. Hopefully, I said, we're going to learn something new about something. And I'm looking at you right now, and I'm saying that when I did tell y'all that we would learn new things, I really had not a clue that it would be about a victim. Think about every comment that you've ever made, every thought that you've ever had about the victims in this terrible, tragic case. Nothing has changed for OKJ when it comes to those victims. These victims were good people, all of them. They were lights in this world. And yes, I can say light in this world. Just because someone believes light or dark in terms of spirituality does not make them kooky. It does not make them Lori or Chad. But all of these comments and all of these things that we have all thought about and expressed to one another, I'll just say it from where I'm sitting. All this time, I thought, poor Tammy. She doesn't realize that her husband is a piece of shit who is going into all of this fringe stuff, and this is a good Mormon woman. She doesn't have anything to do with any of that. How narrow-minded was I? How narrow-minded was I? She spent over, 27, 28 years with this damn asshole? If for nothing else in terms of human behavior, she strikes me as someone who would want to uplift her husband, uplift her family. And over time, I'm sure she realized real quick that if she thought that Chad was talking crap or that he might be wrong about this or that according to what he believed, she knew it was better, in my opinion. And I could be wrong, y'all, and this is what I think. It doesn't mean it's real. All I'm saying is she knew that it was better. It was better to go along with her husband. And over time, maybe, just maybe, it just warped her. Now, what is the difference between true religion and some of these whacked out ideas? That's for you to decide. But I can tell you now, after today's testimony, it has been confirmed, y'all. It's been confirmed that Tammy Daybell not only knew about light and dark, but she absolutely, on these family chats, she knew what was being said. Whether she believed it or not, she was right there. And those family chats had to do with whatever Chad was telling her children. There is no doubt that Tammy Daybell loved her children with all her heart. And she was an excellent, loving mother. So in her mind, I don't believe that she would have allowed her children to be brought up with this bullshit unless on some degree she believed it. Jill Schneider says, You're not narrow-minded. You choose to believe the best about someone, and that is the right thing to do. VixTech says deferring to your husband was part of her culture. Denny Lenny says it makes sense, really. Keep sweet and obey is the standard. Pineapple Princess says, I think she'd be leaving him by now. Suck it, Chin. She was amazing. Y'all, there was no way that I was going to change my opinion about the true core and character of Tammy Daybell. What does surprise me and is very unfortunate, and it hurts me, that she absolutely went along with this. Now, I'm not her, and my beliefs are not hers or Chad's or anybody else's religions out here. Who am I to say that, oh, she believed this or this or this, so I don't believe that, so she was kooky and all this and that. Y'all, we are talking about 2 murdered children, and we are talking about a woman who was murdered herself. Carrie Ann says, today explains so much about the family dynamics. I always wondered how Emma could stay there or try to sell dirt on Facebook Marketplace after the kids were found. That's just absolutely disgusting, Carrie Ann, that she would do that. Ashley Kane says, I think she would have done and believed anything Chad said to save her marriage. Well, how about this, Ashley Kane? I figured it out. In that religion, the man is over the woman, and he's supposed to have these priesthood things, or at least some kind of more power than a woman and all that. Was it wrong for Tammy to think that my husband is teaching this to me and to my children, and I have to put this in our God's hands? So, all I know is that there is only really one question that I have over today's testimony about that specificity, and I'll go over the exact words that was said by John Pryor and this police officer. I cannot pronounce his last name, Kukamangi or whatever his name was, but the bottom line is this. Their beliefs were not my beliefs. A lot of people on here, I'm assuming, they're not your beliefs either. What Chad did in implementing those beliefs with Lori and Alex and the rest of the cult doesn't show up necessarily on those family emails, other than to say that it was Chad Daybell who was demonstrating with his wife's knowledge she had to have read them. Whether she was sitting right there with him or not, she had to have read them. This was a family text message with Emma, Mark, Leah, Garth, and Seth. He implemented it by talking about something about these children in Sunday school and all that. And that is very discouraging to me, that Tammy would think that it's okay for Chad to rate children. Because let me just be clear with y'all. Children are the most in the kingdom of heaven. And in Holy Scripture, the Holy Bible, it says that unless you have the mind of a child, you won't make it to heaven. So that tells you right there that, in my opinion, in my belief, that children are the most in heaven. Children are thought of better than adults. And here Chad Daybell is rating them. It is absolutely disgusting, KJ, that's for sure. I wonder if the state will ask Emma about that when she gets on the stand for Pryor's witness when he calls her to testify. Well, Carrie Ann, I can tell you this right now. Emma's got some splaining to do. And I hope the state does bring out that Emma's went on Dateline NBC and Emma was in goody with Lori right after her mother's death. That just isn't going to square right with the jurors. Trevor Levesque says something must have happened because they stopped sitting next to each other at church, right? Well, that's a good point, Trevor Levesque. There was a testimony at Lori's trial, and perhaps it'll be in Chad's trial, that their dynamic, they used to sit in the front of the church together. They looked happy and all that. This came from a church member lady who was in one of these groups at their church with Tammy. Forgot the woman's name. Maybe y'all can put that in the comments. And that after a while, they ended up in the back. They weren't sitting close together and all that. Fancy Nancy says, KJ just got here, but started over because I'm behind and I have to know the whole story from what I missed. When my bestie came over, damn, I leave for a couple of hours and the shit hits the fan. Right, Fancy Nancy. Well, let's just put it to you this way. Back where I started when I opened up this live stream, I said that I myself, I can only speak for myself, I had preconceived notions about Tammy. And I thought this certain way about Tammy, and I still have a heart for her, y'all. And I do care deeply about getting justice for her. And the children, and Charles. But I guess another question needs to be asked is why? Why would John Pryor need to bring this out today? It just felt like he was shitting all over Chad Daybell's family. Or perhaps maybe this was John Pryor's way of getting through to the jury there on Chad Daybell's behalf, that Chad is not going to sit there and take it that what his beliefs were was all his own. He wanted everybody to know that Tammy and his children felt the same way. And that if it was something so nefarious, then why was their whole family in it? Grammy B says, I'm still shook. I can't process this yet. I'm going to have to see what is coming up. Jill Schneider says, something with Emma's story doesn't add up. On Dateline, she blamed Lori, but when Chad got arrested, she was offering with Lori. So which is it? Correct. Bullseye says, Emma thinks Lori is cool. I'll tell you something else. When we got that new evidence of Chad sitting in the back of the police car and Emma's talking to him and Emma says, you know, I think I understand things better now, Dad. Y'all, it makes more sense to me because I couldn't quite understand what she meant by that, but now I do. I've been so shaking my head, says Susan Honecker. So sad, so sad. Justice through understanding is the only way. Janelle Murphy says, I can see Emma trying to get along with her dad and Lori out of being accepted. Do you remember Chad ignored his children after Tammy died? Correct, Janelle. It was Julie Rowe that was not, she was brought up today, but do you remember Julie Rowe going out here and saying that Emma called her crying, saying Dad doesn't love us anymore and all that? Folks, I'm getting mixed signals left and right here. Beach Lady says, I don't believe Tammy's light and dark had the same meaning as Chad's. I agree with that, Beach Lady, but I also saw, or at least heard, because I couldn't really read the emails, but I heard the testimony today where Tammy was actually in this conversation. Hold on a minute, y'all. It's getting dark on me. Let me turn the outside lights on. Not that it's going to do any better, but I'm out here on the porch, so it ain't about seeing me, but you can hear what I got to say, and we'll move forward with it. I want to thank the people that did catch the community wall post and gave their ideas and opinions about today's testimony with Tammy. Any of y'all that want to see some good comments, go on the community wall. There were several that left comments. Bullseye says Chad is trying to buy his children. Denny Lenny says Tammy was misled just like many others. She believed his BS. Right, Grammy B. Okay, let me go through this very quickly. Then we'll do a little more talking here, just to get some of y'all up to speed. And I have focused in on that little bit of testimony that pretty much knocked me out of my patio chair earlier today. It freaking tripped me out. I did not know, y'all, that Tammy was like this. So what John Pryor is talking to this law enforcement officer on the stand, he's the case agent. I cannot, Kunanis or something to that effect. What John Pryor is talking to him about, he puts up these emails that was a family email, like a text message email type scenario. And let me just be clear, it was brought out in testimony that there were no times or dates associated with this communication. So we're not really sure. This could have been several years ago, okay? Which would make a difference, in my opinion. Because there were no dates and times on these emails, I don't understand why that can even be entered into evidence, because you've got to have some kind of foundation. But nonetheless, John Pryor has put this on the overhead about these emails, and in my opinion, he wants to prove to the jury that Tammy and Chad and their kids, they all believed the same stuff. And y'all, how many times have we said that we didn't think that Tammy would have believed any of that? And then it got me thinking, well, really, what is mainstream to them? Because their religion is not, anything that I recognize. I mean, they say the word Jesus, they say the word God, but it doesn't have any, it just doesn't look like anything that I know. The storyteller says, I don't think Tammy had a clue Chad would label her dark, or that that she would be in danger. Well, I agree with that. The question really is how could Tammy sit there on a family text and watch her husband talk about me and Tammy did Sunday school yesterday, and there's this 12-year-old little boy, which I'm not going to give his name. The little boy, I know he's an adult now, but there's no reason to repeat it. This young man's got his whole life ahead of him. Donna Donald says he's probably 18 and above right now. But the bottom line is it's embarrassing for that family. But it was on Tammy Daybell's email account. This wasn't Chad Daybell's email account. And in the email folder, okay, this is the exact words that this law enforcement guy said in his case notes about these emails, and John Pryor had him read it out loud. He said, in the email folder are chats between Tammy and Mark while Mark was on a mission. There are also chats between Tammy, Mark, Seth, Garth, and Emma and Leah. Then he says, during some of the chats, it is very clear that Chad is messaging in the chats, and it is also clear that Chad is coming through on Tammy's emails. In other words, this law enforcement officer says, yes, this was Tammy's account, but Chad is speaking on them. So I got to scratching my head on that a little bit. I thought, well, okay, Chad's got access to his wife's email account. Which brings me to another good question and possible answer here. When Tammy's school email account, where Charles had sent that about the adultery that Lori and her husband Chad was having, and it was opened and it was blocked. This was after Lori had gotten text from Charles when Charles said that he was going to let Tammy know. And I am sure, y'all, that Lori let Chad know, hey, you better be looking in those email accounts, because Charles is threatening to go to Tammy. And make no mistake, y'all, the way I see it, Chad had his hands in all of Tammy's private life. He probably had the passwords to her school account or personal email account. Make no mistake, y'all, I believe it. So anyway, he says this on the stand, this case manager for this case, Kusitis, or whatever, however you say it, he says, while looking over the chats, there are several emails that lead me to believe that Tammy, along with Mark, Emma, Garth, Seth, and Leah, have knowledge of Chad rating and light and dark. The belief of light and dark. So, from what this law, they didn't somebody like Melanie Gibb or anybody. This is a law enforcement officer who's been through the whole email system of Tammy. Says there are plenty in there showing that Tammy and the kids absolutely, they knew all about light and dark. And when I first heard that, I thought, well, of course, because, you know, John Pryor has said earlier that light could mean Jesus and dark could mean Satan and all that. So I wasn't really too thrown about that. But then we got to the part where Tammy is actually speaking in the emails, and she's talking about Mark's camera, his computer camera. It wasn't working, and Tammy said it was cursed, and that Dad and her were removing the curse from it. So I thought, okay, here we go. Tammy's a little different here. She believes in light and dark. She's also letting her son know, who's far, far away, that her and her father's going to fix that camera for Mark. They're going to take that curse away from it. And it really bothered me, y'all. And then, of course, it came out in testimony today that Mark, the son, was talking about body coding. And it wasn't like he was talking about body coding where Tammy and Chad were like, what are you talking about, Mark? Or anything like that. It seemed natural that Mark would talk about body coding. And John Pryor asked about that. And this law enforcement guy said he didn't know what that meant. Well, perhaps it means that Mark is reading up on something called the Body Code 2.0 by Dr. Bradley Nelson, who is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, that talks about how you can do all this healing and stuff. And this opened up a great Pandora's box about how the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints talks about if somebody says they can heal you, or they've got some kind of remedy for something, and they're wanting money from you so that you can get this miracle or healing, then you shouldn't have anything to do with that. That's what came to mind. So I thought, okay, Chad and Tammy are okay with their son, who's on a mission, getting into body coding. And then, of course, I thought, well, what else is out there? Well, there's the Transformation Code by Janet Van Leer on how to get entities out of people. Okay, this is out here. This is what these LDS people are dealing with. They are reading all of this stuff from other members who are writing these books or who are doctors or psychologists, i.e. Jody Hillebrand and others. And they're implementing this in their lives. And how about getting entities out of people? It's a mainstream thing. This is a very popular book, y'all, in LDS circles. So is it so far-fetched to think that Lori and Chad wanted to get entities out of these victims? Which is a crock of shit. It was just there endorsing, espouse just what? Religious beliefs for the purpose of murder. So, Tammy says to Mark, you have a lot of negative weapons and cords, curses, and trapped emotions. We cleared it out. We clear it out quite a bit, and we'll do that more regularly for you. So, not only, and this isn't Chad speaking through Tammy's email. This is Tammy talking to Mark. Perhaps, maybe Tammy's right there with Chad and is going along with Chad's bullshit. Who knows? But she did say that. Then we get to the Blockbuster stuff, because I was okay with Tammy believing light and dark, because in my mind I was like, well, she sure as hell didn't know that her husband was using it the way he was with his hooker and her twisted, messed up, psychopathic brother there and the rest of these cult members. But this part right here, Mom and I taught Sunday school yesterday. This is Chad talking. And there was a 12-year-old kid who's 4.2 dark. Now again, y'all, this is a family chat. Maybe, y'all, there's a possibility that Tammy wasn't there when he said this. But does anybody want to believe that Tammy did not read any of this? This 12-year-old child is 4.2 dark. And then Emma speaks up and says, well, she likes that kid. And then this is where Pryor begins muddying the water by saying to this guy on the stand, he says, Pryor says Chad and Tammy said, I will enjoy watching his grow to world terror and domination, which that is testifying by John Pryor. And if for nothing else, it's a narrative, because when he asked that law enforcement officer about this thing in the email about I will enjoy watching his growth to world terror and domination, he is trying to ascribe that to Chad and Tammy. But that does not sound like, it doesn't say we will enjoy watching or I'm mom and I'm enjoying watching. No, it sounds like Chad. And then Pryor says again, Pryor is testifying, he's creating the narrative. He says that Chad and Tammy says, unfortunately, he already is influencing another kid, and they named the kid in that. It is Chad Daybell speaking in those two things. What I have an issue with is where it says, Mom and I taught Sunday school yesterday, and there was a 12-year-old kid, I'm not naming names, y'all, who is 4.2 dark. And whether Tammy read that, and if she didn't, y'all, Chad Daybell said it to his kids, so his kids didn't seem to have a problem with it. And if the kids heard it from Chad and not Tammy, then they would go back to Tammy and say something to her over these years. Sharon Softler says, my uncle moved to Salt Lake City in the 70s. He'd call us back here in North Carolina and say, GD Mormons, they're dang crazy as hell. DD Sunshine says they pray to remove the darkness. Janelle Murphy says, remember how Heather Daybell talked about Chad and his snide remarks? Chad has a bad habit of criticizing people. This is not Christ-like for sure. Susan Honecker says, true, KJ, but the world terror and damnation is bullshit to me. Sherilyn Softer says, Pryor knows he's just harping on stupid shit that makes no difference. He's nitpicking, but bless his heart. CB is giving Chubbs a defense that cannot be questioned. Vixtex says the father is the head of the family. Correct, Vixtex. I think it's, y'all, I know this is kind of unrelated, but I think it's quite interesting that we're sitting here talking about light and dark and you can barely see me. Oh, well, it is what it is. Maybe if I turn this on, let's see. That ain't gonna work. Maybe I'll just do it like that. I'll give a little bit more light anyway. FFMX-teen, hello, I hadn't heard from you in a while. They're all extremely brainwashed, and I'm afraid the kids will get up there and lie, especially if they don't think Chad did anything wrong. TC says, LOL, good, this is a spooky case anyway. Well, I love y'all too, Sherilyn Softer, thank y'all. So anyway, what did I get out of it? What did I get out of it? First and foremost, this is just me. This is OKJ. You know I respect and honor all differing beliefs on this case because, folks, ultimately OKJ doesn't know more than anybody else. What I'm saying is that Tammy, number one, first and foremost, she was a mother, she was a sister, she was a grandmother, she was a friend, she was a wife, she was a member of her church. She loved people. She did for people. She didn't deserve to be murdered. Whatever she went along with or whether she embraced it out of whole cloth makes no difference to OKJ. Because the bottom line is Tammy was murdered. And John Pryor is sitting there trying to muddy the waters. There have been plenty of people at Difficult Researchers, Cresha K. Easton there, that are coming out in the comments saying this doesn't seem to be coming together properly for the state and all that. It's only because John Pryor keeps throwing a bunch of crap in here and getting people distracted. It really comes down to that. Dorothy, those kids of Chad's are going to lie on the stand, that's for sure. And Dorothy, they're going to be impeached. Because you can't go on the stand and lie too much over things that can be, where there's other evidence that prove otherwise. And their credibility is in the shitter, just as Melanie Gibb, David Warwick, and I'm sure Zulema and the rest. Alpha Fem XT says Pryor's just as awful as Mark means. He's throwing his divorce attorney expertise. Ashley Kane says, I can see Emma trying to get on the stand and saying that they were all deceived by Lori. Trevor Levesque, yes, the officer was still on the stand. And then, well, no. After today, they had a Spencer fella come on to talk about Tammy's school email, and that through the system, he was able to see that, yes, that email had been opened and blocked. And then they stopped for the day. DD Sunshine says they believe lying is okay if it's for the good. Well, like I've said before, DD Sunshine, if any religious organization tells people to lie, that's some serious, evil-ass stuff. Satan is the father of lies. Do they want to pattern their life after Jesus Christ, who was perfect? Or do they want to pattern their life after Satan, who lies? It's as simple as that. Heidi's Mind says, this has been hard. It has my brain twisting back to questioning everything. But my gut reminds me how Krisha has stood on the point. Chad isn't the core of this, and justice through understanding. Right. TC says the prosecution needs to subpoena leadership from the LDS Church to discuss Chad's excommunication from the church and confirm whether or not he had the authority or approval to give these ratings. Well, TC, you know, when the state of Idaho put in their indictment that Chad and Lori endorsed to espouse religious beliefs for the purpose of murder, they opened that door. They opened that door, and I think that you are hitting the nail on the head. They need to get somebody in there. They need to get somebody in there that can put a light on the darkness of Chad Daybell. Suzanne MPG, you said you missed the most of the trial today. How did it go today? Well, it came out in testimony today, Suzanne, that Tammy and her children absolutely knew all about light and dark and Chad rating people. And that does not mean that Tammy and her kids knew that when Chad rated someone light or dark or whatever, that person needed to die. But we all see the result of what Chad got his hooker to believe in. You know, wonder how long it took him to brainwash his own family. I mean, was it that hard of a thing for Chad to do, considering all the different things out there for the LDS to grab hold of? All of this energy work and body coding and all this other crazy stuff. I mean, you would think these people would stick to Holy Scripture and not just the Book of Mormon or any of this other crap out here. But you know what? It's their religious life. They can do whatever they want to do. But when it crosses over into criminality, okay, Jay's going to call it out. Jill Schneider, I don't think Tammy knew that Chad rated her dark. Because the reason I believe that is because his whole reason for rating her dark was not only to appease Lori and give a justification to off his wife, but I mean, you know, Tammy did not know, y'all, that Chad thought she had a spirit in her named Viola. Although there were some women who aren't going to get to testify, one of them said that Tammy said that Chad called her a zombie. So, you know, it harkens back to this whole idea of Lori calling Tylee a zombie. Sherilyn Sofner says, I believe that the prosecution knows that as long as they present the facts, the jury will see the real and true story of money, sex, and power. Suzanne MPG says, some of that stuff sounds like witchcraft. Oh, yeah. Language of Horses says, do not get mad at me, but did Tammy know the kids were in her backyard? No, I would not get mad at you, Language of Horses. That's a valid question. That is a valid question. You'd have to look at everything, that her behaviors, anything that can be proven through the evidence. I don't, there's not a whole lot there, so there's no evidence that Tammy knew. But hey, as far as I'm concerned, Language of Horses, anything goes. I in my view, I don't believe that Tammy knew. I don't believe Tammy was evil. I don't think Tammy wanted to rape children, and I don't think Tammy wanted, and if she did, she probably thought it was something innocent, like a phase maybe that they were going through. Not all this bullshit like Ian's document where, they can turn into slugs and there's these vibrations, all this crazy ass stuff. Grammy B says anything is possible. Ashley Kane says, isn't it funny, KJ, that Chad was involved with Julie Rowe and another woman, but Tammy wasn't good enough for that? Well, Tammy wasn't going to be a hooker, Ashley. Tammy wasn't going to do all the things that old Lolo could do. Chad's dream woman. I'm sure Lolo did lots of tricks for old Chatty boy there. Vix Tech says, I wonder if Tammy noticed something in the backyard. Well, I'm sure Tammy noticed disturbed ground in the backyard that Chad explained away as shooting a raccoon. Folks, this whole testimony that come out today of John Pryor talking about raccoons, the state cleaned that up. That was back in August. There was no talk about raccoons at all in the month of September. And this bullshit about paintball guns, it just is beyond me why the state did not ask about, have you seen any evidence, detective, about Alex purchasing a paintball gun or Alex Googling paintball guns? Did you find a paintball gun in Lori's garage or in Alex's apartment or anywhere? Did you find paintball gun ammo? Did you find the hopper? Did you find anything that had to do with a paintball gun? It's ridiculous. TC says she was staring at fresh graves every time she looked in her backyard. So unbelievable. Susan Honecker says the state has strong evidence to come. Ashley K says, Tammy was not blue to see visions. What do you mean by that? Fancy Nancy says, Tammy didn't believe in zombies, negative, positive readings, and what happens when someone goes dark. Okay. Grammy B says, could they be thinking that they will take care of all this mess with the closing argument? Grammy B, the bottom line is they're going to take care of it before the closing argument. There's just too much overwhelming evidence. Leanne Forsberg, my sentiments exactly. Leanne Forsberg says, it is ridiculous. There was no paintball guy, folks, or paintball gun. Yes, Janelle. Pryor threw Chad's family under the bus just to save Chad's skin. Anytime that John Pryor talks about these things, y'all, he's trying to normalize it so that the jurors will think, well, this isn't really as bad. Like today, let's just for sake of argument, when a juror heard that Tammy and the kids were talking about light and dark, and that Tammy was talking about, a curse on a camera or all this other stuff, the jury members surely are thinking, well, the state is saying that light and dark and the ratings and all that was this, it shows the murder and premeditation and stuff. But heck, Tammy's sitting there talking about it, right? Heidi's mind says, I keep going back to sentencing where Lori said, I mourn Tammy's death because of my communication with my friend Tammy. I know she is also very happy and extremely busy. I know I need to let it go. Well, I'll tell you what, Heidi's mind, there's a reason why your mind keeps going back to that. But in my opinion, Lori said that she was friends with Tammy and thought Tammy was busy, just like she said about JJ Dolly, to kind of ease her own freaked out psychotic mind. She can't handle the fact that she is a serial killer. That's what I think. Sorry, y'all, but that aggravates the shit out of me. That she wants people to believe that she's friends with Tammy Daybell. Give me a break. She told Charles that. Lori sent Charles a message saying, well, Tammy and I are friends. And the reason she told Charles that, because she didn't want Charles to go to Tammy. She's trying to get Charles to back off. Beach Lady says, I want Melanie Gibb charged too, but not at the expense of getting Chad off. Well, I'll tell you what, Beach Lady. Melanie Gibb, Zulema, David Warwick, Audrey Barterio, the witches there, Serena Sharp, all the rest of them, Nicole Earl, all these people, they got Chad off, if you know what I mean. Because if they wouldn't have been there believing his bull crap, he'd have never felt powerful. And the thing he wanted most out of his power is to get into a shower and pretend he's in a portal with Lori jacking off, okay? That's just the way I see it. Betsy B says, I'm not worried one bit. The medical examiner, Tammy was dead before Garth got home. She was cold. I'll tell you what, when the medical examiner comes on the stand, and I hope it's tomorrow, because I was really hoping it would happen today, y'all. I thought John Pryor was just going to go on, beating a dead horse over and over and over again. I mean, those jurors must have been sitting there just absolutely probably just irritated as hell. Ashley Kane says Julie Rowe had special powers. Zulema could have powers with the rain and wind, but Tammy was never given or spoken about giving her any powers. Seems odd. Well, Ashley Kane, guess what? Tammy says that her and Chad could fix Mark's broken camera over there at his mission. And that they were working on it. She didn't say Chad was going to work on it. They said she and Chad. Does that make Tammy a bad person? No. But it doesn't mean that Tammy was helpless. I'm sure Chad gave her something to feel like she was something. But even then, I mean, why would he want to give her too much power? He's got to keep her under his thumb. The whole thing is so bizarre. Pryor's not helping his client by bringing this stuff up. It makes it apparent that the whole family is in this cult. The adult children's testimony isn't going to be reliable. Well, I'll tell you what. It just goes back to this, TC. When all of these people that were not in Tammy's family, that worked with her or went to classes, like clogging classes, and they're saying Tammy was so healthy, and all of them were backing each other up on that. You put Emma on the stand saying Mom was very sick. It's not going to look good for Emma, because none of these people have a reason to lie about Tammy being in good health. But Emma sure does. Emma wants to get her daddy off. Yes, Dorothy, Pryor was acting like a 5-year-old today. But I'll tell you this, y'all. Nobody wants to hear it, but I'm going to say it. John Pryor is giving a robust defense. It's not going to fly, but it's good news, really, because John Pryor's doing his damnedest. He's putting on a good defense. You can put the best damn defense on in the world, and it's not going to keep that asshole from getting convicted. We don't want appeals. Larry and Kay Woodcock, Cresha, and the rest, they want a fair trial, and John Pryor's giving them that. Carrie Ann says, I'm starting to find it strange that none of the kids, Garth or Emma, cried when they saw their mama that way. I bawled like no other when I found my mama. My entire world ended. Yes, Carrie Ann, and I had put in the comments that it hurt me when I think about every day that I'm without my mother. And for Emma to act the way she's acting, and, hey, y'all, we all know somebody who's a daddy's girl. I get it. And she doesn't have her mother there anymore, and I get it. But it just flies in the face of the evidence that Emma is so much in denial. The whole family's in denial. Carrie Ann says, I know people react differently, but one of them should have been losing it, I would think. Vix Tech says Tammy had lovely friends. Sherilyn Softner says, I grew up in a dysfunctional family, but this so far is far from anything I know or could imagine. Pryor has no idea about the shadows he is casting, throwing spaghetti to see what sticks. Trevor Levesque says, I believe Garth was coached by his daddy the night Tammy died. Well, I'll tell you this, Trevor. I don't think for 1 second, that Garth helped murder his mother. And I don't believe for 1 second that Garth knows his father murdered his mother. What Garth wants to believe is what his dad's told him, that your mom has died of natural causes. And again, I will repeat this, y'all. In Lori's trial, it was a big step that the jury saw that Tammy was murdered. That was a question that had to be answered. And it was in Lori's trial. She got convicted of conspiracy to commit murder on Tammy, i.e., the jury believed Tammy had been murdered. That does not mean this jury will think the same way. But I don't see how they could think of it any other way. Emma is not the baby, wise old lady. It's Leah, I think. I think Leah's the youngest. Correct me if I'm wrong, y'all. Ashley Kane says, I would love it if the DA would go over the emails. If Tammy believed in Chad's BS, then how come Chad didn't involve her with all of that? Because his plan was to get rid of her. Well, Ashley, I think the state, Lindsay Blake, she kind of came back on recross and said, pertaining to those emails, when Chad and Tammy and the family there were talking about this 12-year-old boy in the Sunday school class, the state asked, was this boy an obstacle to Chad? And I thought that was a good way of looking at it. Yes, the state was letting the jury know. It don't matter if Tammy and them knew about ratings or dark and light. The bottom line is if there's evidence out there that Chad and Tammy and them were judging other people, whether it was in a Sunday school class or anywhere else, that these people, just because they're rated, don't mean they're going to be murdered. Because Chad only murdered the ones that stood in the way of his hooker, spreading their legs, getting sex, getting money, and getting power. Cindy Bullock, we're all waiting on the edge of our seat for Emma to take the stand, and she will be a defense witness. TC says, Dear God, Pryor, no one wants to hear about the freaking driveway anymore. Whatever your point is, we aren't getting it, and it's unlikely the jury is anyway. Well, y'all, we've learned in the last couple of days that John Pryor fat shames. He talks about bipolar disorder, or he bashes things left and right. Y'all, he reminds me so much, and I know this is silly to y'all, but you know that guy, Peter Pettigrew, on Harry Potter that turned into the rat? Before he turned himself into the rat, John Pryor reminds me of him. I mean, he just does. And if Chad Daybell wants his hooker to believe that he feels like Harry Potter under the stairs, then I guess it's okay for KJ to think that John Pryor reminds me of Peter Pettigrew or whatever his name is. Baltimore's servant. How about that? Let's hope when Emma gets on the stand, she doesn't stick out her tongue. Well, I don't think she will, Vix Tex. I think Emma's going to be caught through between a rock and a hard place. Saltino Wincino says, I think Pryor is just the caricature of a sleazy lawyer. Say anything, do anything to get your client off. And he's trying. And I think the jury sees that. I think the jury sees that, yes, this defense attorney is trying to get his client off, but y'all, the evidence is just way too strong. You're welcome, Ashley Kane. Janelle Murphy says all Pryor wants to do is get Chad off, and he'll do and say anything to achieve it. TC says Jesus, Pryor was it a paintball gun or was Alex trying to shoot Chad? Pick a damn story. I'm telling you, some of y'all are so brilliant about picking these things out, really. I mean, what is it? It's like Wheel of Fortune here, pick a letter, any letter. I mean, come on. Well, Grammy B, I've been anxious to know what you and others think. That's why I had to pop on here on my porch here in the dark of night. But OKJ is the light in the world. No. I'm just picking. Yes, Vix Tech, raise for justice. Are you laughing at me, Saltino Vincino? Are you laughing at me? I think Chad is writing the narrative for John, and John has nothing else but to go round and round in circles, says Paula. You know what, Paula? That might actually be true. I think Chad has helped John Pryor create the narrative. Chad is so good at that, don't you know? That's a great point. Yes, TC. Emma is. She's suspect. Pryor's doing exactly what is needed for the families. Need to move to the next step of grieving is a conviction and justice by a zealous defense, and Pryor's using every opportunity he can to defend. Well, I'm glad you're here, Vix Tex. When we heard what we heard today on Difficult Research, I said, I got to go back. I wrote, just that little slice of the testimony really knocked me over. And then I put that post on the community wall. And for those that have opinions about Tammy knowing about light and dark and the rating system and stuff, which is bared out the evidence, please put it in the comments on the community wall, because I read them and I take them to heart. And I might miss something you might say on here. Does it really matter what type of gun it was, Joy Hill says? If someone points a water gun at a cop at night, they aren't going to see if it's water or a bullet. They shoot first and ask later. Seems to be a stall. Yes, Vix Tex, I've been waiting for 4 years too. DD Sunshine says, I think Pryor is reading from Chad's notes. Chad is in control of his defense. Trevor Levesque, Cresha is going to be traveling. I believe she said she's leaving tomorrow. We should all, if we're praying people or if we just want to keep her in our thoughts, she's going to be on an airplane by herself. But I know Cresha, she's a tough cookie. She's determined, and I'm sure we'll be hearing from her. The good news is we've got Donna Donald, who has really helped Cresha out a whole lot, and she's been doing a damn good job. Janelle Murphy says Pryor's plays naive on certain subjects, but how long has he been on this case? He also had info from Lori's case. Good point, Janelle. Yes, Little Bronze. Donna Donald's been great. And to all of y'all, I've been seeing all the ones that are there supporting Difficult Research with Cresha K. Easton. I know who you are. I love you all. Y'all are the best of the best. She needs the support. She's gotten the support. Grammy B says praying for Cresha, Larry, and Kay along with the other family members. Marilyn says Donna has done a good job. Yes. So, folks, this is a new evidentiary fact that we have learned. What are we going to do with it? We have learned that Tammy, indeed, along with her family, her whole little unit there, her 5 children and Chad, they did know all about light and dark. They did know about ratings. And so, for anyone to say, well, KJ, Chad could have been talking to the kids about rating that kid a 4.2 dark. That doesn't mean Tammy knew about it. Folks, does anyone believe that the kids hearing that from their dad is not going to be talking to their mom about it? And besides that, y'all, it was a family chat. She's going to look and see what all her children are saying. And she has expressed that me and Chad, her and her husband, do things to fix cameras or get curses away or dark negative vibes. They're working on it and all that. Yo, I'm one for, hey, you do whatever the hell you want to do, whatever you want to believe. Does this mean that Tammy knew that Chad looked at it like, if someone's dark, you got to murder them and zombies and all that other shit? I don't believe so. But it really comes back to this whole thing about judging people. Judging people. Well, I'll tell you this. This is what old KJ believes. Okay? Jesus. People need to be looking at Jesus in my faith if they believe in my faith. Jesus said you'll know them by their fruits. Right? Jesus said you will know them by their fruits. Jesus did not rate anyone, on a scale or anything like that. Jesus was and still is the light of the world. And Jesus has talked about darkness. But the bottom line is Jesus never harmed a hair on a child's head or any innocent person such as Charles Vallow or Tammy Daybell. So if these people want to forget that we're involved in all this, they want to forget that they're supposed to be Christ-like. They're supposed to pattern their life after Jesus. I don't see anywhere in Holy Scripture where it says it's all right to murder children or innocent life. Carrie Ann, you've helped everybody on here. You've been so good to us all. I love you, girl. Yes, TC. Pryor's not doing Chad any favors with his sexism, sarcastic tone, and harassing witnesses. Well, I'll tell you what, TC, the jurors see that. They see John Pryor being a damn asshole like his client. And that turns a juror off. I understand if you're trying to be vigorous or you're trying to make a point, but he is making it personal. He is acting like a damn asshole. Betsy B, I guarantee you that in terms of truth, if someone receives spiritual gifts, it ain't to judge others into murder or a grave or anything like that. That's ridiculous. Heidi's Mind says, y'all have really helped me make better sense of this new finding. And regardless, there were 3 senseless murders, and Chad was conspiring and participating in all 3 of them were taken from Chad's house to the morgue. That sums it up, Heidi's Mind. And maybe perhaps in your learning and understanding through all the people that have gotten together to kind of, knock heads with one another about this case and try to get a little justice through understanding or go through some difficult research with Cresha K. Easton, that you are a voice of reason. 4 senseless murders, says Saltino Vincino. Rest in peace, Charles. When Pryor said Thanks, State, for saying I have such a robust defense, i.e. aggressive. Oh, yeah. Well, the state, they definitely, they gave him his compliment there. What was that, 2 days ago, or was that yesterday? Well, Paula, I can tell you this right now. John Pryor is fighting a losing battle. He has come up with, he's pulled shit out of his ass. He's given possible reasons why things were the way they were, or this or that. But when you take into totality the whole evidentiary aspect of it, uh, you know, anybody can make up anything. Even Jodi Arias proved that. She was on the stand for days and days and days. She'd spent time in jail for several years putting her damn story together. And I'm sure Chad Daybell has done the same. Well, Fancy Nancy, you've been good too. We all love you. We love everyone on here. Folks, I've been having to put this on advanced settings because I don't want YouTube promoting it so some troll can come on here. It's so good to go on Kresha's difficult research and know that there are people there, moderators, that keep things squared away. I'm honored she'd want me to help moderate. I do what I can when I can. Well, I wish you sweet dreams too, Curly Shirley. I love you too. He asks witnesses questions just to try and confuse the jury. He knows the witness will say no. Do not like him, says Joy Hill. Well, again, y'all, John Pryor is going to jump from one subject to the next to kind of keep the jury off balance. He does not want the state's seamless case coming through, so he's going to get in there and muddy it all up. Y'all, that's just not me saying John Pryor's muddying up the water. He's actually demonstrating that, y'all, in a legal case here. Grammy B says, we are truly blessed to have each other, sending you all love and prayers tonight for understanding and strength. Joe Bracken says, love to hear you, KJ. You keep it real with total respect for the victims. And I do, Joe. And it would be easy for people to say, just because KJ all this time thought Tammy knew nothing about the light and dark or the ratings or anything like that she was not only a victim, but she was a good person and Chad's a bad. But then we find out that she did know about it. It doesn't change anything for me. It's not for me to say that because Chad used those beliefs for murder, that everyone that believes that way, not Chad's way, but the light and dark and the rating stuff, for all I know, y'all, they know. The Church of Jesus Christ, the Latter-day Saints, they probably know that there's some rating thing there. And that we're not supposed to know that. How I can say that because they won't be transparent and let us know that. There have been some people out here that says, KJ, that church doesn't believe in rating people light and dark and all that. Well, y'all, who am I going to believe? When a church says there are certain things that they can't talk about and that it's okay to lie to protect the sacredness or whatever, I don't know what to believe. TC says, I had to turn the trial off today for a while. That's how badly Pryor was getting on my nerves. His condescending tone when he says, when you agree, do you agree? Like he's talking to a effing toddler. Good comment there. So I'm going to be on Kresha K. East's Difficult Research tomorrow. She's going to be traveling. Donna will be there. I know many of the Rays will be there, along with all these other lovely people on this channel, along with Kresha's channel. I love you all. Leave your comments on this live stream when I wrap it up. Y'all, the bottom line is things change when new evidence appears. And it appears that Tammy, her belief system is far different than OKJ's. And her husband took those different belief systems and warped them and used them. I just can't stop thinking about the testimony of David Warwick when he said that Chad introduced Tammy when David Warwick came over with some other men along with Julie Rowe to walk out in Chad Daybell's backyard. I'll leave you with that. Think about that. If Tammy has been shown to know this other stuff, what did she know when David Warwick went over there? We'll never know, will we? So with that said, I love you all. TC says it. Love always wins. Justice through understanding, Rays. And we'll get back together. See y'all tomorrow. And keep on looking.